Hello, podcasters, and welcome back to the Biz Boys podcast. As always, I'm joined by Hamza and Kaf, and today we're going to be discussing the interesting topic, the debate, if you will, of which is better, work from home or work from the office. And we're going to get straight into it. I think Hamza's got a discussion point for us, and Kaf and I are going to go back and forth, and we'll see where we get to.
So I'm the moderator. I'm just the neutralizer, hoping that there wouldn't be too many fights here. So
you shouldn't have a hard job, Hamza, because obviously Kaf's wrong. So
we'll see about
Let's
that.
see about that.
I already have my points in front of me, so I don't know. Anyway, I guess I'll start by just setting up the foundation, and I really want to know who is for working at home and who's against working at home, pretty much working at the office. So
I think working from the office is the better way of doing it. It's more social, it's more enjoyable, and I think it's the way it should be.
I'm taking a stand of working from home because I think it's much more productive, and basically you save a lot of expenses and time that you would otherwise spend on the commute to work. So I take work from home.
Okay, so I think personally, I basically have two sides to this debate for me. One side of me is facts and the other one is personal experience. So the facts leads more towards a side, and that will be more apparent as we go through. Then my personal experience will come into play, and then that should challenge your discussions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I think let's just kick it off. Let's get quick. Let's go.
Shall we start with the first point?
Could do, yeah.
So I guess the most important topic in business nowadays is productivity and efficiency. So it's a good thing to compare one of the more significant times of our lives, which is COVID, before and after. And so I guess now our focus is more on after COVID. So after COVID has finished, what do you guys think about distractions and productivity at home or at work? I mean, in the office. So let's start with...
So I'm going to tell you why exactly it is more productive to be at home. So when did a shift towards work from home start mainly? Even though work from home did exist, even before the pandemic, it was only after the pandemic that they started a shift towards work from home culture. And I'm going to talk about a report that was published by the UK Parliament. So this is according to a self-reported survey from employers. About a third to a half of employers consider that there has been no change in productivity since the rise of remote work during the pandemic. About 12% reported that there has been an increase in productivity. And of those who reported a decrease in productivity, which was only about a quarter, the worst hit industries were manufacturing and real estate. So you can imagine why they would be, because you're essentially manufacturing it. But what I'm going to be talking about is the loads of other industries which could really benefit from these work from home schemes. So I'm also going to be talking about another study, which was a joint venture between University of Chicago and Mexican Autonomous Institute of Technology, that found 40% of respondents reported better productivity when working from home than in person.
Right. So why does that matter?
I thought increased productivity is the main issue here. And if you get more productivity from working from home, I think it should matter.
Yeah, but But who's that good for?
Increased productivity is good for the company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter about the employee, it's all about the company and profits.
And no, 40% respondents in the University of Chicago and Mexican Autonomous Institute were actually employees, not employers.
Yes, that's directly
the employees
bad for them.
self-attested that they are working better. They have increased productivity.
And that's a good thing for them, is it? That doesn't make any difference to them, does it?
I'd love to be more productive. Like I think it makes someone happy when they...
Why?
Because I feel like I'm getting more done. It gives me the satisfaction.
And you're just happy to do that
At home?
out of the goodness of your heart.
At home?
Huh?
At home, you feel more productive doing stuff at home.
No, it just... Productivity in general gives me satisfaction. because I feel like I've done something. I've done something with my day.
Okay. How do you get that productivity?
How do I get that?
Yeah, because you have to get it from somewhere. It's not just like productivity.
Okay, so I don't know. This is going off topic, but when it's talking about me, it might be a sudden burst of motivation that increases my productivity, or a deadline that's coming up soon that makes me have to increase my productivity. But doing that does make me happy, and
So
I still don't see a point.
deadlines make you happy, and that's what you want, is it? You want lots of deadlines to be more productive. That makes you happy.
I mean, I don't know, that's how my ADHD brain is wired to work. So yeah, but that's not the point. So once you get to your point,
The point is, you're saying you would like to work harder, which I'd say most people don't. They'd rather have more money for less work. And I was reading a Forbes article which references a Harvard study, and it was saying that a lot of this productivity comes from an increased working day, and on average, remote workers are working 48.5 minutes more than they were when they were in the office. So you could argue that the commute that they've lost, they now just work.
They do increase. They have. I'm not gonna deny the fact that they have started increasing their working hours. But then again, this also works for the employees, because that commute time that you mentioned earlier, that saves them a lot.
But if they just have to work it, what's the difference?
You might as well roll out of bed and just start working, rather than spend wake up hours early so that you have to get ready, get dressed, go to the office. So you shouldn't spend all that.
You shouldn't
money.
Look after yourself. You should just get out of bed and start working instantly.
That comes down to each person's individual preference.
Okay, part of me wants to agree with it. But here's the thing. I do experience this, and I don't necessarily work in a physical space.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just consider university as a physical space. So I do agree the fact that, working from home is more efficient, because I think there's a difference between efficiency and productivity. So it's more efficient working at home because, obviously, as you said, commuting hours. Wait, was that your point?
So one of the major points for remote working is you don't have to commute. But as I've just said, workers on average are spending 50 more minutes working than they were before.
Yeah.
They also save an average of $5,000 a year.
From what? From the commute?
From just not going, not the commute, not just the commute, the eating outside the restaurant. So all of this
deliveries.
Deliveries. Sometimes you have to attend meetings, and you probably get up redo. So
okay, so in terms of that, obviously commute takes a lot of time. So for example, for me, it takes around 20 minutes to get on campus, but then the preparation time before that, getting dressed, everything, takes like 20 minutes more. So add that, and then it becomes 40 minutes.
So you wouldn't get dressed if you're working remotely at home?
No, I would, but that would just cut time down to 20 minutes.
You could always dress in a more casual attire, something comfortable. So
I'm not saying like you don't need to wake up early.
You might even end up saving the money you spend on expensive suits or working attire.
There's a difference with university though, because the research that you're reading and the work you're doing is directly benefiting you, whereas when you're an employee, you are working for the benefit of the company and for your salary. So unless you're on like some kind of pay by performance contract, why would you want to be more efficient? Not someone who wants to progress in life and go really far and as hard as he possibly can, but just a normal person, someone who's happy. Why would they want to work 50 more minutes a day?
I guess it is a cost. The cost benefit analysis. The cost is $5,000 if they travel to work, and the benefit. The benefit is the $5,000 that they save if they don't travel to work, and the cost is working 50 more minutes at the peace and comfort of their own home. So
when I used to commute an hour a day, half an hour there, half an hour back, it didn't cost $5,000. It was maybe £2,000 when you consider car insurance, petrol. I wouldn't even put it at £2,000. I put it more $1,500.
Yes, but you don't represent a very big population, do you? You're just one person.
So $5,000, what kind of a commute time is that?
It's an average commute time. So this was, if you want a bit more local statistics, that is done in the UK. Each worker in the UK will save approximately £44.78 a week by cutting out things like commuting and buying lunch out. So that it comes around to a total of 1.1 billion each week saved by.
What if they pack their own
23.
lunch?
Huh?
What if they pack their own lunch?
Not everyone has the time to pack their own lunch.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Imagine you're waking up all ready to show up to work, and now the worst situation, you have a bunch of kids you need to send to school. You have a bunch of you have to cook meals for them. You have to I don't know, fold clothes and whatever household chores you have to do. If it's a woman, it's worse. I feel like it'd be worse for you. And working from home not only is beneficial in terms of cutting that travel time, but it also gives you more time to spend with your family, or it cuts down expenses like maybe you have kids and you have to have sort of like a nanny to look after your kids. This way you can actually be in and around your kids while working.
Mm-hmm.
You can ensure that they have a really good childhood. So it is also empowering women.
That's a good point. Okay, that's a good point. I agree. Spending more time with family members.
So basically not working.
No, working, but working from home.
Working from
Because it does optimize your time. So here's the thing. If you think about productivity in this way, people usually like to go out of their house to kind of clear their mind. So it really depends on the person. If they enjoy being at home around their family environment, are they still productive to do their work? Okay, or the opposite. So
this is it. It all sounds great, but I've got some stats here. So one from Airtasker reports that 7% of people rank water cooler chat, so socializing at work, and work relationships as important as getting work done. And this not existing could lead to massively reduced satisfaction. I've got a quote here from the NHS that say, working from home can have some benefits, but a change like this can be challenging and it can have big impacts on our mental health. It can cause stress, lack of motivation, anxiety and uncertainty. I've got something from the BBC here as well. Research showing that remote workers are putting in longer hours at their desk, to data suggesting that up to 80% of UK workers feel that working from home has negatively impacted their mental health as an increasingly complicated picture is emerging when it comes to the well-being of home workers.
So was that after COVID?
Let's have a look. Yeah. Yeah, it was after COVID.
So your main point would be workplace. Working in a physical office would be better for their mental health when compared to working from home.
Yeah, well, I think you guys were highlighting the benefits, but the data suggests that it has a very detrimental effect on mental health, working from home. Okay,
so are you going to say that working at the office are not going to have the same mental effects? As in, because working from the office can also be very... You're essentially in an environment where you're competing against every single one of your peers. And so... Not
everyone, maybe at EY or KPMG.
But you would say in a healthy working environment there is bound to be competition, there is bound to be conflicts. So going into an office means that you have to deal with colleagues who you might not essentially love. This office politics can significantly affect your mental health. So I personally have a friend who worked in marketing, fresh out of university. And he resigned his post and moved back to his hometown for a couple of months, where he is still now. And it was because of a colleague of his who was actually a lot older than him, but almost the same post as he was. He felt threatened by him, so he just made his life shit at the office. So that you could essentially have colleagues like that. And this is not just in the case of my friend. So according to a study conducted by conflict management and mediation provider Consensio, there is a significant link between unresolved workplace conflicts and increasing mental health issues of employers. So 84% reported that workplace conflicts affected their overall health. 75 have said that it affected their mental health. 65 said their physical well-being was affected. 25% had to take time off work because of the impact it had on them. So it can be argued that rather than the mode of work that needs changing, it needs to be that companies need to take mental health of the employee to be more of a priority and increase spending on mental well-being. And you can see this pattern in the past few years because companies have recognized this. They recognize that it's not not be working in the office. It's not working at home. It's that they need to increase their spending on fixing the problem rather than just blaming it on something. So you can see an increased investment in these areas. So according to the 2022 Employee Wellness Industry Trends Report, 90% of employees increasing their investment in mental health programs. And since the pandemic, 81% of workplaces have increased their focus on employee mental health. However, around 36% of companies takes more reactive approach to implementing support rather than being proactive, and that's where companies need to get better, rather than just blame it on the way you work, or it just comes down because of the nature of the work, and companies need to understand that.
So with your friend, he's saying if he worked remotely, that wouldn't have happened to him.
Well, he would never come in contact with that colleague, and the colleague probably wouldn't have as much influence.
You still have like an internet space though on Teams, and it's still a working environment. I mean, are you saying remotely you can't be cyberbullied, and are you saying cyberbullying's not real? Or
no, cyberbullying is very real. But if you were to cyberbully, internet is a space that records everything. Everyone can see it. No, if it was real, and if an employee was cyberbullying one of their employees, it's very easy for someone to raise a complaint and say that, he has been bullying me, so and so, and all of their activities will be available on the network. Whereas when it is in a physical environment, it's as he said, she said.
It's like that with remote though. On Teams, a lot of Teams conversations aren't recorded. None of them are recorded unless you know. So you could still bully someone online. It's the same.
If you're saying you're gonna police someone on a call with say a meeting with a bunch of other employees,
that's directly relatable to real life though. I mean, they wouldn't do it in a proper meeting. They're not going to do it in a meeting online. They're going to just call you one-on-one.
No, the thing is, they still can bully. A bully still will find ways to bully, but this way it's limited. The extent of his bullying is limited, and it can be a little bit more supervised.
Why?
Because it's more easier to control a virtual environment than it is to control a physical environment.
Is it? I think there's some managers that disagree. I think there's some that don't like the remote working change. I mean, look at Elon Musk. He wants more people to be in the office. He doesn't like the remote.
Yeah, let me just add to the point of...
Quickly, before we move on, you said managers don't like it, but ever since
some
the
managers
pandemic,
don't like it.
81% of line managers, not Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a CEO. Line managers who work directly with these employees have said that the productivity has gone up ever since they moved towards a virtual environment, and that goes on to show that people are satisfied, or people are rather adapting to the changing conditions.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to add, because you mentioned a lot of statistics on mental health, and that mental health at home is much better than being at the office, and I agree with that, but I would come with more evidence and like more words than actual statistics. So researchers show that continuous work distractions, which usually occur in the office, have detrimental effects on people's health, mental health specifically. And it's mainly because they're constantly asked to do something. So they're always constantly asked to do specific tasks, like, oh, can you just do this, add this to your agenda or whatever. And I do experience that personally. So, and at university. So I agree with that point, is that when you're in an actual workspace, people know that they could just come up to you at any time. There are no boundaries. They would just come up to you at any time and be like, can you do this? When you're at home, nobody can actually tell you to do something. So you wouldn't be distracted when you're actually focusing on something. People would have to actually book an appointment with you.
That's true, but having worked remotely, when your manager rings you have to pick up. You can't ignore them.
But I feel like you're more or less only going to be replying to one person, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree on some levels. Like when you work remotely, you get messaged. You can choose to ignore that, but then the messages start to add up. You get 10 messages. You got to go through them, and then at the end of the day, your manager might be, why have you not responded to those messages? So I agree. It's kind of like in person, you might have to do something there and then. And yeah, maybe you do have a little bit more freedom at home, but managers don't like you having that freedom. and they want to know what you're doing. And this leads me on to one of my next points about monitoring software.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got some varying statistics here. There's a Forbes article talking about a study, and it said Microsoft released a new study where it found 85% of its leaders say the shift to hybrid work has made it more challenging to have confidence that employees are being productive. And 48% of business leaders installed monitoring software on computers of their employees to check on their work. And it says no wonder that only 49% of employees say they trust their employer. That was a 2022 study. And I was looking at some of these monitoring softwares, looking at prices, looking at what they do.
So monitoring software, can you give us some examples?
So, for example, in my remote job that I worked in a telecoms company, they did have monitoring software, and this is maybe the caveat. They didn't particularly use it very much, but when something wasn't being done, they have metrics on everything. They can know exactly what you've done on every metric. Hamza, do you like the idea of your manager having a stealth mode and stealth moding you? Does that sound like a positive thing?
That sounds creepy.
It sounds creepy, doesn't it, that your manager can stealth mode you? They can also take screenshots of everything you do, and they can look at your virtual desktop. Your right to privacy has disappeared. It is now a police state. You have no freedom. It has all been taken away from you.
I never knew that these actually existed.
And they're serious. They know everything. The more complicated a job you have, the harder it would be to do. But especially for maybe call center type jobs, you can have metrics on everything. And on the argument of productivity, these do cost. And I got a few different different quotes and prices. So looking at the other various Miros, for a 25 person team, could range anywhere from maybe £1,500 to £5,000, depending on the level of a year, depending on the level of surveillance you wanted to have and the power of the stealth mode.
So in terms of monitoring employees, does that mean that they would be able to see them, or is it just their desktops?
So it's just their desktops, but I have heard of companies where they do want to see the employees. They want to see if they're sat at their desk, what they're doing.
Okay.
They want to see the webcam.
At this point, just go to the office.
No, so at least by legal requirements, companies can't essentially ask to see your webcam unless you're in a meeting. So if companies go out of bounds and require this, essentially what they're doing is illegal.
Mm.
So
yeah. So have you considered legal aspects of this?
I've not considered legality, no.
Because I was just thinking. Obviously, lots of companies do ask about, if they are in a Zoom meeting or something, a Teams meeting, then they will ask you, do you agree with us recording this meeting?
Exactly.
So that has been implemented in all companies. I don't think that they'll be able to monitor you live, at least.
Yeah.
Probably the desktop is, but I think that's fine. I personally
think there's a difference when you as a person, like that's a bit of a grey area, but everything you do, work-related inputs, mouse clicks, web pages, everything, we'll see.
I mean, of course, yeah. I think I'd be more than fine if they were gonna monitor my work computer, not as long as it's not my personal computer. I'm fine with them recording everything on my personal on my work computer. And you mentioned the high cost. You said £1,500?
Depending on the level of monitoring, I've seen for a 25-person team, £1,500 to kind of £5,000.
Do you think that?
So that's around. I was just going to another point. Did you know that some data that was released by Global Workplace Analytics show that companies can save up to $11,000 per year per employee who spends half of that time working from home. So if they can, because they're not spending on any of their operating expenses such as rent, they're not paying for electricity as much. So essentially, the companies are still making a profit even if they increase their spendings on monitoring.
That's a good point. But I was just about to think that. Do you think people would prefer using their own, electricity and actually paying the bills, rather than going and using somebody else's? Like they would rather go to the office, work there, maybe use a library because it's not their bill at the end of the day. So don't you think that they would prefer that?
I think that depends from person to person, and that's a personal preference. Because for me, my electricity bills are essentially unlimited, as in so long as I don't go above a certain limit. There's a fixed amount I just have to pay. And if I were to sit at home and work on a computer for say 9 hours a day, I would more than happily do that because I'm paying for that electricity anyways. And I end up saving expenses on travel and food as well, because I know this because I actually worked as a data input assistant.
Did you do those in the winter months, Kath?
No, I did that in the summer months.
Well, Kath, let me tell you, speaking of somebody who's worked remotely over the winter, it's cold. And my mum did not want to let me have the heating on, or your wife, or whoever it is.
Mhm.
And it's expensive now. Energy bills are expensive, and it's cold. So, yeah, I get that the employers are saving money there, but I would say it's coming at a cost in the employee that you need to factor into your savings.
So are you saying if you're working, if you're not at home, that there's not going to be any heating in the house? It's just going to be back cold?
It's just
Yeah,
reduced.
you just leave it.
What if you have kids in the house?
They're at school.
They're going to come back. It's not
Yeah.
like they're going to be in school.
Yeah, and then the
for
heating
all
can go.
time.
Heating can go on.
You might have pets who might need the heating. It's
Pets don't need.
You might this, you might that, but the bottom line is you have to pay your heating bill.
Oh god, I think I was too cruel with that sentence.
What did you
I was
do?
like, pets don't need heating.
Do we need to go back?
I don't
yes,
think they do
but
because-
then again, this comes down to an argument of personal preferences, and I think
You do have to pay though. You have to pay. For
Yes,
heating.
but you have to pay regardless.
No, you don't.
Yes, you would have to pay an electricity bill regardless. Most people, at least for students, what we do is we take a plan where we know that
Most people aren't students.
most people might not be students, but they are richer than students.
So for those who are
Students,
not,
pardon.
for those who are not students, would probably be paying a monthly fixed fee. I think that's
Yeah.
how it.
It's gonna be
being-
if it's a student, I'm paying a monthly fixed fee. Then I can only imagine it's going to be the same for a family as well. And if they're paying that much, you would if you're gonna pay that much for heating, electricity, and you're gonna go after work, I would say that's a wasted cost because you're paying that, you're not using that. So this would in turn make that cost more efficient as well because you're using it.
So what I meant by fixed, by the way, just so I don't confuse people, it's fixed, I believe, during a specific year. But if you do once again go beyond
Beyond
that,
that, you'll have
it
to
would
increase the
it
plan.
the next year. The plan, yeah.
Yeah, you just change the plan. It's like a data plan, sort of like.
You good?
I'm just looking at my next point, but I refuse to believe that you will use less energy working remotely.
Less energy.
Working remotely. So you're.
Let's see. So, are you talking about? Are you talking about an environmental aspect?
From a cost perspective of the electricity and the gas, I refuse to believe that most people leave their heating and energy on all day when they're at work.
You're talking about what 2-3 months max. That's winter months. Essentially, you'd be saving up. You wouldn't need the same heating and electricity like all through the year. And it comes down to even the regions. Not every region needs heating and electricity. And the thing is, companies can essentially employ anyone across the world. It doesn't have to be from a cold place. And
What do
it
you mean
gives
to
the
work
employer the
in their
freedom to
company
move around
remotely?
as well.
Do you mean to work in their company remotely?
Huh?
Do you mean when you say they can employ anyone around the world? Do you mean to work in their company remotely?
Yeah.
So it's like the company I worked for. You weren't allowed to work outside the UK. You had to stay in the UK while you're working remotely.
Mm. But there are other companies which yes, sorry, go on.
So, there are a few stats for this. So, in the UK, around 40% of the workforce are actually planning to spend more time in the office to cut back their rising energy bills.
Thank you, Hamza.
I just had to add that in. And also, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess people do prefer.
We could debate it all day.
Yeah.
It maybe depends on the size of your
Yeah.
home,
Mm.
lots of different factors, geographically. But kind of a point I was trying to make at the start is this is a lot better for employers, and there's maybe some benefit for employees, but employers can use it to ruin an employee's prospects, their life, make it way harder. So I've got a statistic here from Forbes. And the title is Employers Are Using Remote Working as a Bargaining Chip During High Inflation. So I'll just read a bit of the article. Employers may be using remote working options as a way to keep compensation levels down, according to a July 2022 report from the National Bureau of Economic Research. The economists behind the report surveyed 500 US-based companies and found that 38% used remote work opportunities to keep employees happy and moderate wage growth pressures. So going back to the having to work during your commute, I guess it depends on the cost-benefit analysis on the person between whether they want to work remotely or from home, but I don't think we should pretend that working remotely is all sunshine and rainbows. Your employer could use it to not give you a pay jump.
Definitely. I would say that if someone wanted to misuse something, employer or employee, both of them has a leeway to go about that. It's just a matter of if you go beyond limits, there are going to be consequences, and And I'm aware that there are downsides to working from home, but then again, people do want to work from home, and this can be substantiated by the fact that we have been seeing a steady increase in work from home roles since 2020, and you can see that the studies predict that the number will grow to 22% of the US. Around 36.2 million jobs will be done remotely, and if you can see why that is, because when you go to the graph just above, you can see the potential that exists in each industry for remote work, and you can see that most of them have a lot of potential to grow, and this just doesn't show the potential to grow. It just shows how much productivity can increase as well in adopting a remote work environment. As you can see, some of the least effective ones are agriculture, accommodation and food services, and construction. It's funny that I noticed accommodation and food services down here, because that industry actually reported some of the highest increase in efficiency back in 2020 when they started going remote. I have no idea how, but I remember that was one industry that reported an increase in efficiency when they went remote.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting seeing some of the productivity increases that could be possible. I'm just looking at education. That's a massive blue bar there, the theoretical maximum. I just wonder if I want my kids, let's say I've got 6-7-year-old kids, if I want them to be staring at a screen of a teacher, or whether I'd like them to be in person.
I just wanted to add on that because I was just researching this. So there are a few statistics on online learning. And so once again, you went over that here. It seems that education is one of the biggest ones. More specifically, around 49% of... So it really depends on the demand for this. Obviously, the business would then adjust its employees and itself according to the demand. So around worldwide, 49% of students have completed online learning, but also 70% of students say that online learning is better than traditional classroom learning. And even though it is, again, this is a different debate by itself on online learning and traditional and classroom learning, but I just think that if a high number, high percentage enjoy online learning, then what makes teachers not, enjoy online learning as well? I mean, it is once again debatable. It differs from person to person, but it just gives them, it optimizes their time and their ability to, to work on PowerPoint presentations, to work on projects. And it also gives students the ability to, rather than go from place to place, like from home to school and etc., they would just stay home and complete their work. And because if you think about it this way, if you don't listen, for example, to lectures, in-person lectures, you'd obviously go back home and watch it again. So that's like, instead of being 1 hour, it would be 2 hours worth of lecture. So it definitely minimizes it. I mean, both on the side of, what is that noise?
I don't know. What is that noise? It's our computers, I think.
It's probably my laptop.
It's our computers.
My laptop's about to take off.
Yeah. So essentially, what I was trying to say is, if it benefits students, and it would also benefit teachers as well. And obviously, the debate goes on who decides to, who likes it or not. It depends on a person.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point because, again, it comes down to personal preference on if you learn better in person or if you need the time, or you can, study at your own time when your mind is clear. You can sit at home and then watch your lessons. But there was a solution. You mentioned before you are not sure if you'd be comfortable if your kids were just sitting in front of a screen.
Yeah, I think children are very social creatures and they need that social interaction. And one of the arguments against remote working is that it does massively reduce your socialization with your team and the people around you.
Yeah, so I thought of an interesting solution for an issue that is faced by some students in the US. This is a bit sensitive topic, so I was going to talk about the school shootings that we have witnessed in the US over the past few years. So ever since 1970, there have been around 2,057 shooting incidents and resulting in around 680 fatalities and 1,096 injuries. Now, these are kids that are dying, so if
and possibly teachers.
Possibly teachers as well.
Yeah.
And if this was a solution to secure your kids, to make sure that your kids are going to be safe, I think every parent would want to adopt a remote teaching environment, because I personally wouldn't want my kid to just go out to school just not knowing that if they're going to come back home safe. I think this could be a possible solution.
Do you think this is a remote working argument more of a USA argument? 'Cause
I think
does that apply to the UK?
It doesn't apply anywhere else.
No, I was just coming up with a creative solution that how this could benefit a whole bunch of people. Now imagine a situation. Let's come back to schools. I'll talk about India as well. Now we spoke of US. So in India, when we during the monsoon, like when we have really big floods, when we expect floods to come in, some of the states, what they do is they close down all schools and students essentially don't have classes for like weeks on end.
Mm.
Now this badly affects them when it comes to exams, because then the teachers are going to be rushing to catch up on portions. And I know this because I have been through it. And now, if you look back now, if you look at the situation there now, no student gets a day off just because there's going to be a flood, because they can essentially work from home. They can take their lessons from home. That reduces the pressure on students, because now they are going on at a scheduled manner. They're not losing out on time. They're not being pressured to complete portions in a limited amount of time. So there are so many applications to it. You just need to see where to look for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's definitely benefits. Like remote working, if we just change the word working to just remote, there's definitely benefits to remote. If the social implications were fine for the kids, then that would be fine. But again, I think this, for me, it goes back to with school, the kids get the direct benefit, whereas with working, the employers get that productivity bonus, in my opinion.
So I guess, this debate always leads to this new term that we have that's called hybrid working or hybrid learning, whatever, hybrid. So what do you think about hybrid working?
I think hybrid working could be the best of both worlds, because it could allow people to choose their own schedules. And this is it's the flexibility. If the employer allows the employee to choose their flexibility, then I think that's the best of both worlds, because then the employee doesn't feel like they're being manipulated. They can work where they want to work, how they want to work. That sounds perfect to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, both if you adopt both the schemes, whether it be work from home or it be work at the office, both have its downside and upside. So being able to decide which one you want to do, which course you want to undertake, and what benefits you want to forgo is a good way. So the hybrid work model is a good way to go about that, yeah.
Well, that was an interesting debate today that we had, guys. So I guess it's time to provide a summary and kind of like close this down. So yeah, there are lots of mixed opinions on whether working in a physical space or online is a better option. I still think it depends on the person, regardless. Even though sometimes people might have the tendency to lean more towards one side. But once again, I did have my facts more towards working online, mainly because it does reduce distractions and it does allow employees to focus on their work more optimally. And then obviously my personal experience would mostly lean towards physical work environments. Anyway, don't forget.
Anyway. Switched up very quick. Anyway, I'm done with this.
Woo! It's Friday.
Okay. We've been the Business Boys. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to hit that notification bell button so you can get an update from us every time we upload a new video. Don't forget to follow us on our socials on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. And we'll see you in our next podcast.
Close till I get